Hello, 4th graders. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Unit 1, Lesson 9, which is focusing on subtracting from 1,000. You are going to learn 3 different ways to subtract from 1,000. One way you're going to learn is practicing subtraction from zeros. The second way you're going to learn how to subtract from 1,000 is with the top numbers being other than 0. And the third way you're going to learn how to subtract from 1,000 is exploring special ungrouping situations. The first way I'm going to show you how to subtract is when you subtract from zeros. So here's my problem. I have 4,000 minus 2,345. So boys and girls, when you're subtracting, you always start with the ones place. So here's our ones place. So I'm going to subtract 0 minus 5. But I can't take 5 away from 0. So I need to go next door to get 10 more. But I notice I have another 0. I can't get 10 from 0. So I have to go to my hundreds place. But again, I notice I have another 0. I can't take 10 from 0. So I have to go all the way to my thousands place. So my 4 is going to become a 3, and I'm going to make my hundreds place have 10 because I took 10 from next door. So let's see, boys and girls, if I can subtract from my ones column. 0 minus 5. I still can't take 5 away from 0, so I have to go next door to my tens place. But I notice I still have a 0 in my tens place. So I need to go to my hundreds place to get 10 more. So my 10 is going to become a 9, and now in my tens place, I have 10 because I went next door and got 10 more. So let's see, boys and girls, if I can subtract my ones. So 0 minus 5. I still can't subtract, so I have to go to next door to my tens place to get 10 more. So I'm going to cross out my 10, and it's going to become a 9 because I'm borrowing 10 more. And now my ones place has 10. So now I can subtract. So 10, so I'm again, boys and girls, I'm going to start with my ones column. 10 minus 5 equals 5. I'm now going to go to my tens place. 9 minus 4 equals 5. I'm going to move to my hundreds place now. 9 minus 3 equals 6. I'm going to put that comma there. And then 3, I'm going to my thousands place. 3 minus 2 equals 1. So 4,000 minus 2,345 equals 1,655. So remember, boys and girls, when there's a 0 on the top, you can't subtract. You have to go next door and get 10 more. Now I'm going to show you how to subtract from numbers other than 0. So while I'm solving this problem, I'm going to be using this subtraction poem to help me with solving it. So let me read the poem to you. It says, more on top, no need to stop. More on the floor, go next door and get 10 more. Numbers the same, zero's the game. And I'll be explaining this poem a little bit more while I'm answering this problem for you. So my problem here says 4,625 minus 2,987. So what I'm going to do, boys and girls, is I'm going to circle this first part because when we subtract, we always start at the ones place. So I'm just going to circle my ones place so you can see what I'm talking about with this poem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask myself, is there more on top or is there more on the floor? Since there's more on the floor, since 7 is bigger than 5, I have to go next door and get 10 more. So since I have to go next door, my 2 now becomes a 1, and my 5 becomes a 15. Now I can ask myself with the ones column, is there more on top or is there more on the floor? Since there's more on top now, I can go ahead and subtract. 15 minus 8, or 15 minus 7 equals 8. So I'm going to write 8 down here. Now I'm going to move to my 10 column. And again, I'm going to circle my 10 column because I know that's all I'm focusing on right now is my 10s column. So now I have a 1 up here because it was a 2, but I had to borrow 10. So now it's a 1, and then I have an 8. So I need to ask myself, is there more on top or is there more on the floor? Since 8 is bigger than 1, there's more on the floor. So again, boys and girls, I have to go next door and get 10 more. So now my 6 becomes a 5, and my 1 becomes 11. Now that there's more on top than on the floor, I can go ahead and subtract. And 11 minus 8 equals 3. So I'm going to write 3 right there. So now, boys and girls, I just subtracted my tens place. I'm going to subtract my hundreds place. And again, I'm going to circle this because I'm just focusing on the hundreds place. And I have to ask myself for my poem again, is there more on top or more on the floor? Well, again, boys and girls, there's more on the floor because 9 is bigger than 5. So I have to go next door and get 10 more. So I'm going to cross out my 4. That becomes a 3. And now my 5 becomes a 15. Since there's more on top now, I can go ahead and subtract. 15 minus 9 equals 6. I'm going to put that comma there. And now I'm in my thousands place. So I'm going to circle my thousands place because that's all I'm focusing on right now. I'm going to ask myself, is there more on top or more on the floor? Since there's more on top, there's no need to stop. I can go ahead and subtract. And 3 minus 2 equals 1. So when subtracting from numbers other than 0, boys and girls, you need to ask yourself, is there more on top or more on the floor? If there's more on top, then there's no need to stop. But if there's more on the floor, you have to go next door. So my answer is 1,638. The last way that I'm going to show you how to subtract is when you're subtracting special ungrouping situations. And the reason why this one is so special is because the top number contains a 0 and then other numbers than 0. So let me show you how you would solve this problem. So our problem has 2,703 minus 1,966. Again, I'm going to be using my subtraction poem to help me solve this problem. So again, remember, boys and girls, anytime that you're subtracting, you always start with the ones place. And again, I'm going to circle just that ones place so I know that's what I'm focusing on. So I'm going to ask myself, is there more on top or is there more on the floor? Since there's more on the floor, that means I have to go next door and get 10 more. So I need to go to my tens place. But unfortunately, it's 0. So can I borrow 10 from a 0? I can't. So now I have to go to my hundreds place value. So which that now, I'm going to take a 7, and that's going to become a 6. because I need to give that tens column some 10 so the ones can go next door and get 10 more. So now that I just took 10 from the hundreds place and gave it to my tens column, let's see if I can subtract my ones column. So I'm going to ask myself again, is there more on the floor or more on top? There's more on the floor, so I still can't subtract, so I need to go next door and get 10 more. So now my 10 becomes a 9, and my 3 becomes a 13 because 3 plus 10 equals 13. So now I can subtract because there's more on top than there is on the floor. So 13 minus 6 equals 7. So now I'm going to go to my tens column. And again, I'm going to circle my tens column because we did a lot to it. And so now my problem is 9 minus that 6. Since 9 is bigger than 6, there's more on top. So I can go ahead and subtract. 9 minus 6 is 3. Now, I just solved my tens column. I'm going to be solving the hundreds column, which I'm going to circle it again. So my problem here says 6 minus 9. Well, there's more on the floor, so I have to go next door and get 10 more. So my 2 becomes a 1, and my 6 becomes a 16 because 6 plus 10 equals 16. So 16 minus 9 equals 7. And now I'm going to go to my thousands place. Well, since 1 minus 1 equals 0, my answer becomes 737. Now you have learned 3 different ways to subtract. One way you learned is how you subtract from zeros. Another way that you learned how to subtract is when you subtract from thousands with the top numbers were other than 0. And the third way that you learned how to subtract is when you were able to explore special ungrouping situations. I hope this was helpful, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a great night.